Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about making some landscapes inside of Unreal Engine. We're going to take a look at a couple different methods, and they're just going to be really quick and simple. I'm not going to get heavily into creating textures. I will have some texture videos out in the near future, but right now I'm just going to focus on teaching you how to make the landscapes, and also I'll show you a real quick easy method to apply the textures so you can go out and find some textures if you want on your own. There are also some other tutorials on YouTube that you could watch that will show you how to make those textures. You can also visit my YouTube channel at Paul Fritz Animation and check out some of the other things I have on Unreal Engine and in Maya for 3D modeling and for making video games. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. This is a landscape I just put together using Unreal Engine and using height maps. I'll show you how to do this, and this has procedural textures on it, and also I use the tools inside of Unreal Engine to create this lake. I'm not going to really get heavily into the water, I don't think, today. I might throw it in just real quick and show you the initial tool and let you kind of play around with it. Alright, so let's go ahead and create a new scene. Let me go ahead and save this. And we're going to go ahead and create a new one in here. File, new level. And I'm just going to create a default. This is kind of our start right here. And in order to get started, the first thing I want to do is make sure I save my work. So I'm going to go ahead and do a save current as, and I think I'll name this one landscape number 3. All right. So that'll go ahead and get us started. So the first thing we're going to do is take a look at just doing the landscape manually inside of Unreal Engine. So right up here we're going to go to Modes, and we're going to go to Landscape, and I'm going to delete this out of here. Sorry about that, left that in. And I'm going to go ahead and change it back to Create New. And when we take a look at the grid here, we can see that it's pretty expansive. We have this large area out here, and right now this is not set to default, so let me go ahead and put everything back to default. Alright, so here's the default. It's 8 by 8. That's these large squares, and then if you get down inside of each one of these large squares, there are 63 quads inside of those. Alright, you can go in, you can make some changes to these. You can of course increase the size of it, you can just decrease the size of it. You can also change some of the locations that are here under our transforms. But we're just going to go ahead and jump right in, and I'm going to hit the create button. And this is what we get when we first do our creation. And now what we can do is we can start painting and creating landscape. It's pretty simple to do. Right up here we have our sculpt tools and we have our paint tools. We also have a tool for managing our landscape. We could come in here and do a resize right here if we wanted to. We can move some sections, delete some sections, add, etc. But we're not going to get into that today. We're mostly going to focus on sculpting. Right here is the sculpt tool, and this is the basic tool that we would use to start creating mountains and such. So let's go ahead and go over some of the controls for it. Right here we have tool strength. We also could add this tool blend towards a target value if we wanted to put a target value in there. We could adjust the brush size. Right now it's set at 248.60. The default is 2048. And then we have the brush fall off. The brush fall off, if you take a look at the white circle in the middle, you can see it starts to get more faded towards the edge, and then it's totally transparent before it goes out to the outer white circle. We also have an inner white circle where it's most solid. We can adjust the brush fall off. We take a look at it there in the scene, and let me see if I find a good spot to go here. I'll just leave it right there, and I can adjust the brush fall off by moving it up and down. You can see that the size of that inner circle gets larger or smaller based on the size of the brush setup that I do here. I'm going to go ahead and put it back to default. So those are the basic parts for this tool. There's up here you can also change some additional pieces of this initial tool. Right here again is the strength, is set to 0.3. We can change our style of brush. We have a circle, we have an alpha. So this is what a circle looks like. It makes kind of a a gumdrop shape if you hold it in spot long enough. The alpha with the star in it, we can create different shapes using this pattern. And we can, over here on the left hand side, if you take a look, of course we can apply textures. Right now it's set at the default one. We could hit the little down arrow there and select a different texture. There are some already in here. Let's see here. And then you can of course import some that you want as well. Okay. I don't know what this is. So you can use different images to do things. This is a countdown. It's actually a countdown timer. You can adjust the way the texture is read. You can see the numbers there. That's what was coming up when I was pushing it. You can change a lot of things about this particular pattern one. And then of course there's a component one as well. All right. The way to push some of the stuff down, if you wanted to create a hole, is if you hold the shift button down, you can push it down and it'll go down into the ground and create these holes in the ground. We can erase, so I can come back over and I can erase some of the stuff I've done and it puts it back. There's also a smooth button, so if I want to, I can smooth these out and kind of take out the rough edges. Again, all of these have additional tool settings here on the left. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but you can certainly go after them and play around and see how they affect the terrain as you're working with it. There is flat. We can flatten the surface. Ramp. I'm not really a big fan of the ramp. You can place it down in one spot and then move it around wherever you need to, and then you click on it and you drag out where you want the ramp to end. You can even change the elevation of how high you want the ramp to be, and then you hit enter and it creates the ramp for you. One of the things that, the reason why I'm not a big fan of this is it really distorts the shape of our squares here. Of course, all of these really kind of distort them as you take a look here. So we would get stretched issues with our texture along here. Erosion does just what it sounds. So let's go ahead and get ourselves a pretty decent size hill here. Let me change from the component back to the circle. One of the things I didn't talk about was the smooth, linear, spherical, and tip tools as well here. So if I wanted to go to linear, see that it starts to work out there. Let's go ahead and go back to this tool. Let's make ourselves a pretty decent sized mountain right here. Guess I could make my tool stronger. You can hover over these and hold down the left mouse button and move it left to right. Alright, so let's get a pretty decent sized hill going on here. So I can show you some of the other features in here. Alright, so erosion. This uses thermal erosion, and you can come over and you can adjust your strength, thresholds, all these different dimensions over here to kind of play around until you get the look that you're looking for. But it works from the top down, so think of it like it's melting, like a candle is melting, and it will push the surface downward as you start to use this erosion tool. And you'll get to a certain point. All right, let's go ahead and build that back up a little bit. Another one that I really like is the Hydro one. Again, you can adjust all of the settings here. And as you start to go through it, start to use it, you start to produce what looks like water erosion. And it's not really getting the look I want. As you can see, it's starting to develop. Let's go ahead and go to one of the smaller ones. starting to develop some of the erosion along the top here. It gives us some water erosion, particularly if we hit the sides. There we go. That's what I'm trying to get to right there on the side. Starts to wear down and give that appearance of water having eroded the surface. There's also noise, which is similar. And you can just, it creates down and up variations. So you can see that it's creating some valley areas here. It's creating some up top areas. Retop. It's not available in this particular one. Let's see here, visibility blueprints. All right, so you can come in here and play around with all these different tools and end up creating your own landscape using these tools. And you can make some very interesting manual mountains and terrain. So this would be something that you would do if you were interested in controlling exactly the way the terrain looked inside your game or inside the scene that you're trying to create, whatever the terrain that you were trying to make, the landscape, whatever that landscape was going to be used for. All right, so now let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is go back in up here to my mode. Right here where it says select, I'm going to hit that little button. I'm going to select my landscape, and I'm just going to delete it. And it's going to go away. There's my initial starting point right there. So now I'm going to go back into modes, and I want you to do something using a height map. So I'm going to select landscape again. Right now, let's go ahead and talk about where we can get some height maps. One easy, quick place to get height maps is right here at terrain.party. I use this quite a bit. It works really well for just some kind of, it's not really high resolution. Now with that said, there are some high resolution maps available if we go over here to the United States. But you can do much better with some much higher resolution maps on other sites. Now what I'm doing here is, let me go ahead and refresh this and show you exactly what I was doing. So right here is the center point where this always starts at, right here in Tampere, however you say that. And the grid is an 18 kilometer by 18 kilometer grid, and you can adjust the size of it by hitting the little plus and negative buttons over here. Right here is where it says 18 kilometers. Now for Unreal Engine, it's best if you want the terrain to work correctly to shut this down to an 8 kilometer by 8 kilometer square. So I'm going to go ahead and run this down to 8 kilometers, and I'm going to zoom out a little ways and pick some place in the world. And let's see here. I am going to zoom out a little bit and grab that little square again if I can, drag it down. Now you don't have to do this way. You could just pick a spot. In fact, let me do that instead. So I'm going to find a spot in Italy. And over here in Firenze, I think I'll go here. So what I'm going to do is, if I pick this spot right here and kind of center it, I'm going to go ahead and hit this little cloud with the arrow in it, and it's going to ask me, you're looking at the map you're looking at is really far from the selected area. Would you like to make this your center? I'm going to say OK. Now it's going to ask me to name it, and it's going to try to save it right away. I'm going to hit cancel, but what it did do is it moved that little tiny square right to here. And now I'm going to zoom in a little bit and find a good spot. On this map, the brown terrain is lower, the green terrain is higher. I want something that's kind of got like mountains and valleys, so something kind of like this right in here. And again, it's set to 8 kilometers. So once I get that set, I'm going to hit the little down arrow again. And this time it's going to ask me, what do you want to call this area? And I am going to call it Italy. Italia di Firenze. Let's see here. F. Firenze. I think that was right. Nope, E, sorry. Okay. Now it's going to, what it's going to do is it's going to think for a second. It's going to pop up. Depending on the browser you're using, it's going to put it in either your downloads right away, or it's going to ask if you want to put it in your downloads. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. It's going to put it in my download right here. And I'm going to take this out of here and move it into another location. So I'm going to open up a second folder. I've already got one set up. I have a folder where I keep my height maps, and I just jumped right out of it for some reason. So we'll go ahead and I'll scroll down to it. Height map data. I've got a few of these folders. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder in here. Oh, I see what I did. That one escaped me. That's what happened. All right. So I'm going to go back here, grab my download folder again. Click and drag that and put it into my folder for this. And I'm going to unzip it. You can always delete the zip folder after you've got it done. You don't need to keep it. Okay. Once it's done, it's going to open up all of these additional maps. And it's a bad habit of mine. I never remember to come back and delete those. So I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. We have, in this case, it's given us 4 maps. Sometimes you get 3, sometimes you get 4. I don't know, maybe more. I've never seen more than 4. These are SRTMs and Astra maps. So basically, these are data that were collected by space missions of different types. These are shuttle SRTM ones that were gathered by the shuttle. What we want to do is we want to use this merged one right here. So when I click on it, what it is it is a map that looks like this. The black areas are your lowlands. The bright white ones are your highest elevations, and the grays all in between are your different elevations up to those higher elevations. So this one looks pretty interesting. We've got this nice little valley running through it. I'm going to go ahead and close that. We don't need it open anymore. We don't really need these open anymore either. And now I'm going to go ahead and go back to Unreal Engine, and I'm going to import that in. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to say import from file. I also want to enable my edit layers, because if you're going to do the water, this would be a good time to go ahead and do it. You can always add it later on if you forgot. But right now we're going to go ahead and click it on. I'm going to find my height map file by clicking on this little square right there. And I'm going to go ahead and go into Italy and find the one that's merged right here. What the merge is the merge of all 3 of these to eliminate errors in the data. So because we selected it by 8x8, our map should come out pretty good. It's hard to tell exactly what it's going to look like because of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click here, fit to data, and then we're going to hit import. And this is what that terrain looks like. Not bad. Now, my start point's all the way up here. This is the 0 point, and it pushes everything down for the elevation. So what we can take a look at what that looks like is by clicking back up here, going to selecting the landscape. And over here you can see that my X and my Z and my X, Y, and Z have all got negative numbers except for the Z, which is set at 100. So it's really kind of pushed some things down. All right, so let's go ahead and I could just start it from here, but my character would fall for a while. Not that it would really cause any issues, but instead of waiting for that period of time, I'm going to go ahead and take my start point and put my start point down here on the ground somewhere and see what this terrain looks like. Oh, looks like she fell for a little ways. Anyway, all right, so now we've got pretty nice looking terrain. So this is how you can make a terrain using a height map. let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how to plug in your textures real quick. And like I said, the texturing video, the texture making textures will be another video. You can go to Quixel Bridge. I talked quite a bit about Quixel Bridge. You can go in there and find some textures. Now those are one level textures. I have created some material that are procedurals. So basically what that means is that lowlands are going to be one color. Ones that start to slope up to another elevation, start to slope up to a higher elevation, are another texture. And then the highest and vertical textures, or actually the vertical textures, at the greatest angle, are going to be a different texture. So these have 3 textures in them. That's what these are here. There's 3 different functions here. I actually have 4 because there's 2 different material types here. This one are the materials, and then we have the instances. What we want to do is we want to use the material instance. And we find it. So when we hover over it, you can see at the end it says INST. So the way we're going to put this in is I'm going to select my terrain. When I select my terrain, again, here's our transform. If we scroll down a little bit down here, there's this green box that says landscape material. This is where we're going to go and put in this instance. I'm going to click on it. I'm going to drag it and drop it over here. And when we do that, we get this automatic effect where the lowlands, like I said, the flatter areas are grass. The areas that start to move up to more being more steep have a gravel type texture on them, as you can see right here. And then we have this rock face on the steeper areas. Okay, so that is going to be it for this video. This is basically just a real quick way to start making some textures and jump into Unreal Engine and start making your own scene for your game, or for if you want to use it for being able to set a model in and create some sort of a scene that you're going to take images of. This is one method of doing that. There are others, but we'll start with this one. Okay, so again, thank you for watching my video. If you like what you saw, please like this video. Please subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you again. Thank you.